I'll be really honest. The thing that just sort of visually grabbed me was the logo, and they live this logo. It's a simple boat with two people sitting in it side by side, each rowing. Right? There's nobody in front, nobody in back. Right? They're side by side, and if one rows, then you just go around circles. Right? The both of them have to row, and that is a visual representation of the way we see supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's not a sympathy model. It's not like, oh, you don't have something, something's wrong, you're broken, we're here to help. It's not like that. It's you have a different way of doing things, but you have goals for your life. We're alongside to help you achieve those goals. It's not my goals, it's your goals. And I'll row as you need me to row so that I'm in sync with you.
Edward, I am so excited to have you on the show today. The conversation that we're going to have, I'm not sure where it's going to go, but I know that it's going to be a pleasant conversation. You have a remarkable story because when we had the first discussion, you told me how you started. In the beginning of your journey, you were a therapist
Mm-hmm.
to a CEO of a company, and not any kind of company, a company of service, which I'm really, really excited to unfold throughout this conversation. So, if you don't mind, please introduce yourself to the listeners, to the people that are listening to this really quick, and just talk a little bit about yourself.
Sure, sure. My pleasure. Again, my name is Edward Amey. I'm the CEO of Jay Nolan Community Services. We are a service organization. We provide support services to folks with autism and other intellectual developmental disabilities, the neurodiverse community, as it's known now. And we do that 100% in community. We don't do anything like in our buildings, like people come to us. We go to the people, if you will, and provide support right there in community.
That is awesome, man. That's really exciting. I want to start with a quick background story about yourself, man.
Mhm.
Um, how did the journey start in the beginning before going into this company and working as the CEO?
Mhm.
What was your journey as a therapist in the beginning?
Sure. You know what? I'll go back even farther, just to kind of put in context. So, like, how does a guy even want to go be a therapist? What drives that? I actually have a learning disability, and it really illustrates the power that teachers have. Because a lot of times when you think of, we ask people to think of somebody who was influential in their life. Besides their parents, and grandparents, teacher is usually in that top five. For me, it was a two-sided coin. So when I was in fifth grade, I had a teacher, kid you not, this person should never have been in education. I was challenging, I understand that as a kid with a learning disability, but she basically told me I was a moron and I wouldn't amount to anything. And that doesn't do a fifth grade kid's heart too much. So I figured that's it. Okay, fine. I'm gonna cut up in class. I'm gonna do whatever, and I'm not gonna particularly care much because clearly I can't do this. But got out a different plan for me, and the very next year, my sixth grade teacher, who was working on her doctorate while being a sixth grade teacher, very incredible human being. She was the exact opposite of that person. She took a look at my stuff. She had a meeting with my mother and I, and said, "Look, I know you're capable of more than this, and I commit to you that I'm going to give you my best, and you're going to have to give me yours. And for every minute of my class time that you take up, you're going to give to me your recess and your lunch, those kinds of things." I was terrifying to a kid who can't sit still anyway. And it took a few of those, and sitting, my desk was next to the teacher's desk. And then just a neat insight that she had that wasn't specific to me. Whenever we came in from outside, she did a guided meditation with the class to kind of settle them down, and that really actually was very helpful for me. And I tell this story sometimes when I do speaking engagements, and I do it in the third person. I talk about this kid. But what I do end with is when I brought home my final report card, for the post year of sixth grade. My mom cried because I had A's on my report card. She'd never even seen that before, and I believed I could do something. It was a fundamental shift in what I believed I was capable of, And so school became a challenge in a different way going forward. I'm competitive. So I wanted to be the best at something. And I thought, well, if this is a thing that this other lady said I couldn't do, this lady said I could, and I'm doing it, I'm going all in. And so it shifted. I began to think about things like college and, and beyond. And, I kind of wrestled with what the feels like and the sort of the ups and downs of the emotions that goes along with challenges. And so that was what drove me into considering being a therapist. So I did. I went to college, I went to grad school, and I got a really great gig as a therapist. And for those of you who are familiar with Southern California, I was on the Boulevard. I was in Encino on Ventura Boulevard in private practice, earning my stripes with some senior therapists. I mean, it was a really good situation. And I came to the realization, I don't want to do this, which was really kind of a bummer because I'm like, I spent a lot of time and money.
Yes. I mean,
But I went,
how many years? How many years have you spent on that journey? I mean,
that would have been about 6 years on that journey at that
wow.
point, 6, 7 years almost. Yeah.
And what prompted you to shift from a direct, therapy role to a broader leadership position? I mean, that's the situation that, it's intriguing for me to know.
Right.
Like,
It was organic. I decided that one of the things I knew about myself, like that sitting and on a daily basis now. So I went to use my education and my passion for folks that are marginalized, and I actually started working as a social worker in the foster care adoption arena, and that kept me out and about and kept me busy. And I just began to move up in that organization, get a little bit more responsibility, program supervisor, and then a group from within our church was looking for a new executive director for a private school. And I had taught at community college level. I had education background. I had my master's degree is in counseling and educational psych. And they said, why not? This guy's kind of different than what we've done before. And they sort of rolled the dice with me. And that was my first leadership role. And I just really felt comfortable in the role of casting a vision and motivating people around that and seeing the outcomes of that vision coming to fruition when an entire team gets behind it. And I did that for about 6.5 years or so. And then I moved to another organization came and said, look, you've got all this background, you've got mental health background, you got education, you got all this stuff. And it was a really unique organization that had several different departments that kind of was like running 6 different companies under one umbrella, which really appealed to me because I'm all over the place all the time anyway. And 2 non-public schools for folks with autism and other learning disabilities, mental health program. And I stepped into that leadership role and really had to work hard to shift the financial position of that organization. And I had the social side, I had the people side, and I really had to buckle down and get a handle on that financial side. I'd gotten some good experience where I was before, but I specifically started going to workshops and things that were for CFOs. And I'm like, you need to know what you're doing. And so I had really great conversations with my CFO. In fact, we had actually hysterical conversations. And but I was able to make craft my arguments with him in such a way that wasn't from a non-financial perspective. Although one conversation we had, which I find really amusing, he and I were having this debate over the training component of the budget. And I had a big number in there because I'm like, I want the best, highest trained staff. And he finally slams his hand down on the desk and he goes, what if we spend all this money and they leave? And I said, what if we don't and they stay? He goes, fine.
That's powerful there.
Right? When you stop and think about that, right? And I won him over with that one. So then a recruiting firm, actually, I wasn't looking, but a firm came because this particular organization, the previous CEO had retired after 26 years, and they knew that some great things were happening, but they knew they needed to modernize, bring some more technology in and efficiencies, and to take the organization forward in this new environment. And so I said yeah to the first interview, and then I got really excited about this organization when I read their vision statement, their mission statement. But I'll be really honest. The thing that just sort of visually grabbed me was the logo, and they live this logo. It's a simple boat with two people sitting in it side by side, each rowing. Right? There's nobody in front, nobody in back. Right? They're side by side, and if one rows, then you just go around in circles. Right? The both of them have to row, and that is a visual representation of the way we see supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's not a sympathy model. It's not like, oh, you don't have something, something's wrong, you're broken, we're here to help. It's not like that. It's you have a different way of doing things, but you have goals for your life. We're alongside to help you achieve those goals. It's not my goals, it's your goals. And I'll row as you need me to row so that I'm in sync with you. And that excited me. I wanted to support that, and I wanted to see that grow. And so they tapped me for that role, and I was humbled and super excited about it. So we're talking that's the last 30 years, sort of in a nutshell. That's how I ended up here. And honest to goodness, Hassan, I get to do this every day. That's the feeling in my heart with the work that I get to do, because I have an amazing team. And that's the smartest thing that any leader can ever do, is surround yourself with people that are smarter than you.
That is so powerful. What you just said about you get to do, and I could see the joy just from the conversation, the joy that you're doing it every single day. And that is success. And the book Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and all these different great books,
Yeah.
they talk about success is the person that is fully happy in doing what they are doing. And that's what I see from just this quick conversation that we're having right now. It's amazing. And I'm happy for you, man. This is awesome. This is so cool. Now, talking about that, the skill sets that you had to transfer from, you have therapy, your therapy background. What have you been, what has been the most beneficial from that career transitioning to this career that helped you in the leadership role?
Yeah, that's a great question. And right away, what comes to mind is listening. As a therapist, you are listening. You're listening for the things not said. You're listening for the things said, of course, but you're listening to that person's story and helping them unpack it. As a leader, that's the number one skill, right? A lot of times things like they got to have the right thing to say all the time. No, you've got to be able to listen, because they're guaranteed you won't have the right thing to say if you didn't listen anyway. It's listening to your team. It's listening for what's not being said. And you're not going to get it right every time, but if you are purposeful and intentional about listening, right, building a team and then listening to them, the opportunities, the possibilities just open up and explode for an organization of any kind, whether you make widgets, you serve people, or you build airplanes, whatever your organization is. If the leader listens, then that person can truly cast a vision and help motivate a team forward, because someone who's felt listened to says, yeah, I can get behind that. I can get with that. And, someone who's just talked at, this is what we're doing, go and do, that's great for military. You don't change that you need people to go do that, but that's not how a company should work.
No. And talking about that, you talked about you guys have like about 700 staff members, right? About 700?
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. And
Yes.
that's a lot of people to, have these conversations and listen to. So that's awesome. So talking about that many staffs and the service that you guys offer, what are the challenges that you guys had faced over the time? You as a leader, but also as a team leader, what does that look like? What was the transitioning career like has been for you specifically?
Yeah, an organization like ours, which is very, very field oriented, right? Of those 700 people, I'd say 620 will probably never step foot in one of our buildings, because they're doing the deal and making our mission real in someone's life out in community. The biggest challenge is communication, keeping it two-way, right? It's very challenging. One of the things I committed to, I did the very first year I got here, which can be very humbling, is I do an employee satisfaction survey. And not only do I ask, but I read the entire thing myself. I don't have that shifted off to somebody else. I have somebody who helps me administrate it, but then all the results, I sit with it. And then I write a report and send it back out to the entire company. This is what you said. This is what we're going to do about it. If we can't do something, I'm going to tell you why that's the way that is, and I can't change that. But we've made changes in the company because I want it to be, I have a very lofty goal. I want to be the employer of choice. I want people to want to work here because that motivated people that feel cared about and listened to do a great job. You know, we aspire to 3 key results, right? Our whole mission, our whole strategic plan, we have all those things of an organization, but we synthesize it down to 3 things. If we are doing those things, then all this other stuff is fulfilled. And number 1 is that the people we support will be living meaningful lives in the community. It's our mission statement translated into action. 100% of our employees will feel supported, you know, and valued in their role. And I take that really seriously. And our 3rd is that we will be a demonstrated leader in providing services in the neurodiverse community. And to do that, you've got to listen to the community. So you see that the theme here is constantly listening. It's listening to the people we support. What do you want? What do you need? Listen to the people that do that work. What do you need to make it happen? Because they're people, right? You can't have a mission that's awesome about the people you support, but ignore the people who are doing that work like it doesn't count. Nah, you
Exactly.
can't do that, you know? So it's got to be 2-way. I do a lot of short little videos, out to the team. I also do live, I call town halls, live stream, share a lot of information, that I open it up for questions. And
Okay.
again, humbling and but important because you got your org structures, right? And they always tend to be like, right, a lot of people here, and then it goes up like a pyramid. But I look at it as upside down, right? Ultimately, I work for everybody else in the company because my job is to equip them, right, to do the mission and make it real. And so that's how I work for them, and I'm striving hard to be the best for them that I can be. Takes listening.
So, I mean, you said a lot of great things here, and it's like there's a lot of empathy within your leadership. Do you think that comes from the background in therapy? That
I do. I think it comes from 2 things. I think it comes from the background in therapy, and it also comes from, getting that label as a kid, you mentioned Napoleon Hill. Another great book I love, easy to read, is Simon Sinek's Start With Why. I have focused on what's my why. And when your why jives with where you are, what you're doing, the work that you're doing, it's, again, you get joy out of it. And my why is to amplify the voice of those who are not being listened to. It's not that they don't have a voice, it's that they're not being listened to. And so I take the fact that I listen to them and then I turn around and amplify that. So that's why, I end up doing a lot of advocacy work with our elected officials, and I do a lot of other, the work within our own organization. So it's a constant fulfilling my why, because there was a time when I had one person that was amplifying for me, right? And I just don't want anybody to feel like there's nobody amplifying for them if they aren't being listened to. And so that empathy comes from the sort of 2 things, that therapy background, but also that, like, hey, I've been there. I know what it's like to feel like nobody's listening and nobody cares.
That's really powerful. And there's one thing that I really you said something that a lot of people talk about, a lot of people think about, but don't implement. And from the book, Simon Sinek, Start With Why, that why part, because a lot of people focus on the money side of things
Yep.
and the financial side of things. And money comes and goes based on the challenges that we face in that journey and how much we spend. Talking about the why is the legacy, and it's like much of it's grounding you as a soul. Can you please expand on that, on your side, and that journey of, like, how did you find your why as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
and how did this company had that alignment with you? Because some of the leaders that are listening to this, some of them lost their why. Some of them are trying to get that back,
Sure.
other than having, faith, other than having, the money side, the excitement, the journey, all this other stuff. That why is really, really important. And sometimes it's really, how can I say, people don't really put enough value to it.
I agree. I think that, we're seeing a bit of a groundswelling around that, and companies, boards of directors are starting to see and act on the need to nurture the health and well-being of their CEOs and their executive directors, and help them to find that why or to reconnect with that why. My journey around it came with, I didn't know about that, right? I didn't know what that thing was that motivated me. I thought, oh, it's this, it's that, until I saw that TED Talk by Simon, and I'm like, and then I went and read a couple of his books, and I'm like, that's it. So then I began to sit with it and go, okay, so now that's resonating. Define it. What is it? No, it's not this. It's not this. And I had to kind of wrestle with it for a while. I'll be honest, my very first thing, what I thought what my why was really arrogant. And I didn't mean to be, but it was. I thought my why was giving a voice to those who don't have one. And I'm like, ooh, I reflect on it now. I'm like, dude, really? Come on. But it was a start. I was practicing with it. But I realized that, no, it's the listening. So if I'm listening, that means there is a voice, but it's not being listened to. There's my why. And watching that, watching the change when someone is realized and listened to, not only their experience, but then what does it do to those that are listening to them? It's changing, right? When we bring people in from the margins, when we listen in conversation and dialogue, which I think is something our country is losing, we're doing more yelling at each other than listening. Because when we do that, we find that there's more in common, or at least there's a common ground. Might be a small little speck, but we found it, right? And then we each are changed. We each walk away a little different. Well, that's growth, right? And I get a tremendous joy out of watching growth, watching my direct reports and my senior leadership team, when I see them grow into something, and they take a project and they run with that, and they realize, I didn't know I could do all that, or I knew I could do it, I just needed the chance, whatever those dialogues look like, but to see them get to do it, and to really practice what you preach, if you will. One of the things that we're very excited about is employment for folks with disabilities. And it's looking at the world with a certain set of lenses, right? And right now, with the difficulty in hiring, it's actually opened up opportunities. Employers are more willing to listen to that conversation now because they can't find people. And we actually present some pretty compelling candidates for them now that are a direct impact to their bottom line, and the conversation has changed. It took economics to create an opportunity for somebody to listen, but the listening has changed people. And you mentioned having that you get the financial side and then the why. One of the things I do on a regular basis is, when I'm presenting the financials to the board of directors at board meetings, I regularly say, hey, look, I know this is really good, or I know this is really challenging right here, and we're working on that, but I don't want you to forget that at the end of every one of these numbers are people. This represents people. And the board gets it. They resonate with it. They're like, yeah, okay. And that it builds an opportunity for trust, and then you got to deliver. And when you do, I remind them, hey, this success is these people.
100%, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. And a lot of leaders, from your perspective, dealing with a company like this one, that you're involved in having this piece of conversation, I think there's a dent right here, like this specific conversation. So I'm really happy that you shared that. So thank you for sharing that. I'm really, really happy with what you just said. That's awesome. Now, talking about the company and the vision and mission, can you tell us a little bit more about the mission and vision of the company, and where is the company going, and in the next couple of years?
Sure. We actually just launched our newest strategic plan, a 3-year strategic plan. We kind of came out of another one and summarized that. So this is great timing on the question. Our mission is to support folks that are in the neurodiverse community to live fulfilling lives in the community, right? With customized supports. And we purposefully use that individualized, customized support, because it's one-on-one, one-to-one, what you need personally, right? You don't need the same thing I need. This person doesn't, right? It's so we customize it to what they need and their goals in life and what they may want. We've got folks that are working like in, CNC machines and machining parts that go in airplanes. We have other folks that, hey, their goal, they want to work at a florist. Never had a job to do it. Love flower, want to work at a florist. Okay, let's work on that. Folks that want to move from an institution or a group home to living in their own home with the right kind of support. That's what we're doing on a daily. That's what our mission looks like in action. In fact, I often talk about making our mission real in the lives of people every day. That's right. You can have a great mission statement. What's it look like when it's live? And it's those things. It's helping a young lady who experiences just crushing social anxiety to be able to go to church. That's her goal. She wanted to go to church. It's like, okay, we'll get around you. We'll provide the kind of support you need. It involved even using some wearable technology and to give her alerts on what's going on her physiology and give her control over herself. That's all most of us want is I just want to have control over my life. Where are we going? We're really branching into the things that I like to say the gaps. That's been the history of this organization. We started in 1975, and it was started by a group of parents who were like, it's got to be better than what we see. This is not enough for my child. And I love that because that's in our DNA as an organization. There's got to be better. And we keep pushing ourselves that way. And so for us, it's stepping into the gap of what they call transition age youth services. There's that's gap was as kids are graduating from high school. It's like they get dropped off a cliff because the school districts are like, okay, we're done. We did our part. And now you're kind of trying to start, and there's not a good communication between the service in arenas, for regional centers. That's what we have here in California, to pick that up and then say, okay, let's do something. But really, most of us have been thinking about what we want to do with our lives, right? Since we were 12, 13, 14, not when we're 22 and suddenly it's all done. And like, with school, like, okay, now what do you want to be? I don't know, right? That's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not setting up for success. So we want to step into that gap and start talking to those 14 to 24-year-olds and really shifting and getting them a head start on that, like other folks get. It's being part of the conversation instead of being talked about, right? The other thing we're stepping into is a huge housing crisis. There's a housing crisis for anybody in California. It's just so expensive. But if you're on fixed income, it is just monumental. And so we're looking into partnering with developers and other organizations around the idea of creating these purposeful, intentional communities where it's not just a place for folks with disabilities to live, but for a community where my whole goal, if you will, if I could summarize everything Jay Nolan does into a sentence, it's this. I want to change the language in our communities from those people to my neighbor. That's my goal.
Amazing.
And doing that is creating, right, those communities where people live. And you come out in the morning, you're on your way to work, and you're like, hey, Bill, and Bill's walking his Chihuahua, whatever. And it begins to be that norm of the experience. And then when, people are like, oh, yeah, this, oh, yeah, my neighbor, I know this guy. Yeah, Bill, he's this young guy with autism. He does this, this, and this, and he regularly like checks in on me. We have folks that we not only support, but also I hire because, I'm going to live and breathe our own mission. And I've had several folks that are neurodiverse that work for the company. And, one of the guys checks up on me. How you doing? Wow, man,
That's
thank
amazing.
you. Thank you. Not everybody asks, Yeah, so that's where we're going. We're looking at partnerships, strategic partnerships to make that happen. And then our last goal, because we've got 4 of them for our strategic plan, is to continue to improve and grow our training for our team so that there's more opportunity for them to move up in the company, improve our service lines, and to for that professional and personal development. Because we really respond to that. Everybody wants to get better at something. I want my team to feel like, what? We're the best at this. I would love them to feel that way about it.
That's awesome, man. I love the vision and where you guys are going with this. And what strategic partnerships are you guys looking for specifically?
Yeah, we are looking to connect up with telehealth and telepsychiatry that are specific in for the neurodiverse community. It's very hard to find medical providers and mental health providers that can also like work in that arena. Many of them are like, I don't know what to do. They're not bad people. They just don't feel equipped. And so we've been talking with some organizations that do that. The telehealth and telepsychiatry is great because sometimes a real challenge for folks, in the neurodiverse community is that going to the place and there's a crowd or there's noise or, it's really unsettling where you could easily get, a connection, telehealth. If there's something beyond that, okay, let's plan for it and we'll get there. But those primary care, those immediate urgent care type needs, getting it handled that way. Because unfortunately, for a lot of folks, the emergency room is their healthcare plan, and that is not good for anybody.
No, not. Well,
And then other partnerships like in that housing arena, we're looking for these social impact developers, folks that want to fund that and put their name on something and say, hey, we were part of a change. We're part of saying that this is what community should look like. So those are the kinds of things that we're beginning to look at. Or look at smaller organizations that are doing great work, but financially are having a hard time making it, because things have changed in California, well, across the country as far as the costs go. And there may be a great provider that is barely hanging on and they want to do better work. And so coming alongside maybe and, absorbing that small organization so that that space, that area doesn't lose services for the folks that are there. So those are some of the conversations we're having.
love that. Awesome. Can you talk more about Uniquely Able Academy?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a fun and exciting one for me personally, but also obviously for the folks that do it. It's changing that conversation, right? When I first arrived, we had begun that program, but one of the things I said to my team that works in our employment support team, I said, don't come to this as a social thing. Don't come to this as a charity thing. I want you to go out and sell these people to employers that you are solving a business problem for them. And this is what Uniquely Able Academy excels at. So what that is, we partnered with College of the Canyons, which is in Santa Clarita, as well as the Department of Rehab, and built a program where folks with autism, usually the cohorts are anywhere from 10 to 12 folks, and they're trained from the beginning to the end, first on the actual physical, milling and lathing and all that, but all the way through to computer numerically controlled machines. These are very, very precise and very repetitive projects. They're also very expensive. These machines run 3 shifts all the time because if they're not running, they're costing that company money because these are multi-million-dollar machines. And so we train these cohorts. We've had 6 now that have gone through, and we have a 98% placement record for this. People get jobs and keep those jobs, and they're good paying jobs. And it was a brainchild of another individual that brought it to us to kind of spearhead. But the idea behind the Uniquely Abled is just like it sounds. It's like this is a very precise, right? There's not a lot of room for error. These are like centimeters or nanometers or whatever they call it. If the part's outside of that, it's gone. It's no good. Can't use it. And it's extremely repetitive. Folks with autism excel at this. They are uniquely capable jamming at that. And one great example, I can't remember what the part was, but I do know it went in airplanes. We placed a guy after one of our cohorts with a company. They were making this part, and when he arrived and began his his onboarding and training, the average for the team at that time per machinist was 8 an hour. And after his 3-month time there, his average was 12.
Wow!
Within all the same specs, and that's a 50% increase to that company's bottom line. Now I have their attention, right? They're like, when's your next cohort, right? Because it's solving a business problem. It's improving the situation, and it is changing the conversation. It's awesome. We've now branched out with our team has branched out into robotics. So there's another Uniquely Abled Academy around the robotics. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's taking on an excitement because people, back to what we said before, people are listening now because they're seeing the outcome.
I love that. And this is a different program that what you guys offer to, right?
Yep.
And I mean, there's a lot of things that you guys are offering to this specific marketplace. And how could people find about these different programs? The people that are the families that are interested in these kind of programs.
Yeah, actually, the first thing I would say is check out jaynolan.org, just JAYNOLAN.org. Lots of information there. And of course, you can reach out to us there. You can contact us from within our website. I'm easy to reach. It's just edward@jaynolan.org, and I can point you in the right direction of the right super smart people in my company. And if you're listening to this and you're like sort of twofold, if you're listening to this and you or yourself or you have a family member that is already working with a regional center, you just tell them, like, I want to check out the programs at Jay Nolan because that's the route it works here in California.
Yeah.
If there's somebody that's listening and going, I want to work for a company like that, same thing. Go check out jaynolan.org. We have a lot of I am constantly hiring. The answer is yes, I am hiring lots. So please.
Positions. What positions are you looking for specifically?
We call them, there's the bulk of them are what they call DSPs, direct support professionals.
Okay.
That's the folks providing the direct support. But I also have administrative roles I need. I have leadership, supervisory roles I'm looking for.
Okay.
I'm looking for a trainer because I'm expanding my training team. I have a specific need for a trainer in Northern California, if anybody's listening from up there. But yeah, we're all over Northern and Southern California. So and we're growing. So I'd love to, to bring more people on. I'm constantly growing the organization, which is exciting for me because that means more people are experiencing, our services. That's the end game, right? At the end of all those conversations, all those numbers, it's people.
I love that, man. If you don't mind giving us some advice for aspiring leaders or
Mm.
leaders that are going through becoming a better leader
Mm.
amongst other leaders, what advice would you give to those aspiring to make a career transition? Because you
Mhm.
made one specifically, or
Mm.
a step into a leadership role, specifically in a nonprofit sector.
So first, I guess I'll talk to the one of individuals looking like, hey, they want to make a career change. Do a lot of introspection. What is it that fires you up? Because it doesn't mean you have to be like, oh, I have to somehow be something different to be a nonprofit or to shift to leadership. I mean, if you're a finance person, but you are passionate about people seeing people's lives change, or you're passionate about a particular issue, like those organizations need really good finance people. My CFO is an incredible guy, and he comes from the for-profit arena, came into the nonprofit, which I value greatly, the mind that he has around that. And he had a passion for just service, and so he uses his skills for that for us, and we are the beneficiaries of that. But if you're going to make that, you're looking to make a change in what you're doing, get really clear on what drives you, because then it won't. I mean, even the tough days there'll be tough days, but you're like, but I'm doing my thing, right? If you're a leader that's like, hey, how do I get that next step? How do I get from like that program leader up to the, because it's hard, right? And there's only so many seats, right? And if you love the organization, it might be, patience with that, or looking for what I call an entrepreneurial spirit, and saying, I want to take these resources and I want to do this with it. I want to build this for the organization, and make your case, make a great presentation, and then be able to run that and deliver. That can also get you attention from other organizations. And it may be that your next step has to be, to another organization. I've had folks here actually take a step to another organization and then come back to us because an opportunity opened up. And so they bring, just more experience. But, for folks that are in leadership roles that are struggling, like, what's my why? How do I keep motivated? That's real, because they say, oh, it's lonely in the CEO or ED chair. It
Yep.
can be, but honestly, it's really up to you. I suggest getting an executive coach. Do that. One who will challenge you, ask you tough questions. I right now have two. I have two different ones because they talk to me differently. And so they kind of speak to different parts of my personality. So I need that. And because the ultimately it's our responsibility in leadership to be out at our very best, which means also take care of yourself.
Mm.
You do need to take that downtime. That's why you've got to build a good team and empower them. Don't bring in talented people and then tell them how to do their job. Don't do that, because you'll lose your talented people. You bring them, cast the vision, get everybody moving in the same direction, and then they will blow it up without your needing to do anything but just watch and empower. And I see that, with incredible people in my team. So take care of yourself, take downtime, and if you choose to go to workshops, go to ones that nurture something that you're either needing or that you feel you haven't had in a while. For smaller organizations, that's harder, I know, but you may need to take the shorter times or smaller times, but you've got to do it. You've got to set your phone down. You've got to not look at the email, and give your brain a rest, because you think, well, they need me. If you wear yourself out, you are not giving your best. And nobody wants to not give their best. Another great book I highly recommend, really fast read, life-changing for me, is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's a great little book, and it's not complex, but it's super profound.
That is awesome, Edward. Thank you so much for sharing these resources, man. You have shared a bunch of awesome points and points of view through real life and business experience through the journey that you went through. I want to ask you the final thoughts of the show to invite you to share any concluding thoughts that you want to share to the audience who are listening to this, or a specific message to the audience based on what you're doing, a call to action, we call it, a
Mhm.
CTA for them to learn more about you. Whatever you want to share, the floor is yours right now.
I would say, I'd want to leave with a gift, if you will, something I can do for, instead of asking folks to do anything for me. We talked about I'm hiring, please check us out and all that. I would say we only learn two ways: mentors and mistakes. You have to decide where you want to spend more of your time. I recommend, finding really good mentors who will nurture and grow you, challenge you. Doesn't mean you won't make any mistakes, but I promise you'll make a lot fewer of them if you take that in and allow yourself to grow. You're not going to be the CEO in 6 months. You've got to grow and you've got to learn where your blind spots are. And I think mentors and mistakes do both, but I think mentors are a lot less painful. So get connected with some good mentors in the arenas you want, right? I always tell people, go find somebody who has something you want and learn from them.
I love that. That is awesome, Edward. Thank you so much for sharing that. Based on that question, I have a question to ask you. Who
Sure.
would be a mentor that passed away or maybe still alive that you would love to have a real conversation with today?
Oh, wow. I've looked for her and I haven't been able to find her. Would have been my sixth grade teacher. Her name was Miss Chattery. She was incredible. I would love to have had a conversation with her later in life, just to say, "Hey, how am I doing?" And what would you suggest? Because you know me. But also, yeah, somebody I haven't had, because I've had a lot of great mentors. Like, gosh, we could talk about that for an hour. But a mentor that I would love to have had time with, John Wooden.
Sean Wooden. Okay.
John Wooden. I absolutely love everything that man has said or written. Humble servant leader, John Wooden. He could motivate people and he did it with simplicity. And he was so powerful.
That's amazing, man. What would you ask him? What would be your first question?
I would say, socks? Really? Socks? You know? But that's what, it was that simple, man. And it's a game changer, literally. He taught them how to put their socks on right and tie their shoes correctly so they didn't get blisters. And that's why sometimes I look for that, right? That Occam's razor. What's the simplest thing? Because sometimes we can make things so complex. John had this amazing ability to simplify it to create greatness.
That's awesome, man. Edward, thank you so much for your time and your man. I mean, the resources that you have shared. I can't wait for the team to look at this and for the people, my audience, to watch this. And thank you so much for your time, man.
My
And again,
pleasure.
where people could find you, just one more time.
Jaynolan.org, JAYNOLAN.org. And you can email me. It's real simple. Just edward@jaynolan.org.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
And that brings us to a close of another episode on the Hassan Bash Show. Thank you for dedicating time to your growth and progress with us today. Each episode is a step toward not just reaching, but exceeding your potential. To ensure you never miss out on another episode or these insights, subscribe to the podcast. For a deeper dive and exclusive content that furthers your journey, sign up for our newsletter at hassanbash.com. That's HassanBash.com. And for a continuous flow of inspiration, make sure to follow us across our socials. Your support through sharing our podcast can inspire and empower others in their journey of progress. So let's build a community of growth together. Until our paths cross again, remember, every day is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and move forward. Stay curious, stay inspired, and above all, keep progressing. I'm Hassan signing off. Here's to your journey of endless growth.